Well, welcome, everybody. I'm Bob Miller. I'm co-chair along with Ken Strong, a Marine Conservation League Climate Action Working Group. And we're both members of the Marine Conservation League Board. Marine Conservation League's mission is to preserve, protect, and enhance the natural assets of marine in a changing environment. So MCL's Climate Action Working Group wants to see faster greenhouse gas emissions reduction and carbon removal in order to slow climate change that damages natural assets here and everywhere else. As many of you have seen the photos and videos of intense weather events around the world. So what we do is we identify and advocate for innovative policies and technologies that can slow the climate change. And we focus on accelerating building and vehicle electrification, decarbonizing the grid, and removing carbon from the atmosphere. Two other Marine Conservation League issue committees, Parks and Open Space and Land Use, Transportation, and Water, addressed a wide range of environmental issues, which include adaptation to climate change. And one of the 6 guiding principles of Marine Conservation League is to integrate climate change understanding into all of our work. And that's what we're doing. If you're interested in developing and advocating for innovative positions that accelerate greenhouse gas reduction, please, you can join us and others that are doing just that, developing those positions, and you can contact me at robertmiller454@gmail.com. So in a moment, I'm going to turn things over to Ken Strong, who will introduce our guests from the county, Dana Armanino, who will discuss the countywide electrification roadmap. Then Jim Burrows will provide a very brief update of the Bay Area Air Quality Management District BACMED's building appliance rule status, which is a mouthful, but which could have a really strong impact on reducing greenhouse gas emissions beginning in 2025, 27, and 2029. And then Ken Strong will give a short update on the new 2025 Energy Code passed last week by the California Energy Commission. We'll have brief reports from community organizations engaged in climate change work. And so for you, those of you on Zoom who've been here before, you know the drill. Keep yourself on mute, put your questions in chat. Know that we're recording this meeting and it will appear on a YouTube channel. And also, for those on Zoom, consider attending in person. Genial environment, Wells Memorial Athens, and there are even some pastries here. With that, I'm going to hand things over to you, Ken.
Right. Thanks, Bob. Well, welcome everybody. It's great to have you all here. And for those of you on Zoom who are not here in person, you're missing what is going to be definitely a fun get together. So what we have here with us are 2 teachers from Marin Academy, Liz Gottlieb and Betsy Muir, who brought their class, which I believe you're all seniors. Am I correct on that? It's in their transdisciplinary learning program. The name of this class is Climate Justice, Science, Culture, and the Stories We Tell About Climate. And so we have 15 students here for that. And my understanding is that that one of their early assignments is to look at the electrification roadmap and come possibly prepared with questions. So Dana, you're going to be on the hot seat on that one. The one thing I would supplement what Bob had to say is because of these other committees which meet monthly and have various interesting programs, if you go on Marin Conservation League's website and you can sign up for the e-news, which you would get twice a month, which would tell you about these meetings. You don't have to be a Marin Conservation League member to Zoom into these meetings or attend in person. But some of them might be of general interest to all of you. So today we're focused on the building electrification roadmap, and we are fortunate to have with us here Dana Armanino. Dana is the planning manager on the Marin County Community Development Agency's sustainability team. Another mouthful that we've got to deal with. Dana has been with County Marin since 2003 and has supervised the sustainability team there. And although I'm sure she'll share with us, she was not the principal person involved in developing the electrification roadmap. She owns it now and is going to be responsible for whether it succeeds or fails.
She can do it too.
Not quite. Anyway, so she has a degree in environment, economics, and politics from Claremont McKenna and a master's degree from the Bren School of Environmental Science and Management at UCSB. Go Gauchos. So with that, Dana, I'll turn it over to you and take it away.
Great, thank you very much. And good morning, everybody. Good morning, class. I will get my slides up for folks to see. Hopefully. All right. Looks like it's up and rolling. So I want to thank you guys for inviting me here today to give you an update on the countywide electrification roadmap. And before I want to jump in, I do want to acknowledge that I am your sloppy seconds, so be gentle. Brian Reyes, who really led this effort for the county and the Marin Climate and Energy Partnership. Unfortunately, Brian left the county last week and he's back at San Francisco Department of the Environment. But he did an amazing job collaborating with all of you and bringing all of the stakeholders together to develop what I think will be a very powerful tool as we move forward in our electrification transition. I'll do my best to cover everything in the roadmap with you and answer any questions that may arise. So let's jump in. So today I'm planning to go through the major questions of the roadmap and its development. So why do we need an electrification roadmap? I am going to keep that a little bit brief because it's a fairly engaged and educated group, but again, ask questions if need be. Who participated and how was the roadmap developed? What are the actions in the roadmap and what's the status of some of those actions currently? And then what's next in our adoption and our implementation work? So let's get started with the why. Why was the roadmap developed? The county has been working on electrification efforts since 2018 when we applied to and were awarded a grant from the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, another thing that just rolls off the tongue. I tend to call it BACMUD, so it makes it a little bit easier. We used that grant to start the Electrify Marin program, which provided direct and continues to provide direct incentives to residents who replace a gas burning appliance with a high efficiency electric unit. But the impetus for the roadmap itself came from the 2020 Marin Civil Grand Jury Report, which, among other recommendations, called for the development and coordinated implementation of a countywide building electrification plan. Most of the Marin jurisdictions that were called out in that Civil Grand Jury Report agreed with that recommendation in their responses to the report, including the county. Additionally, there are great co-benefits with replacing these gas burning appliances with electrified units. Gas burning appliances in the home can release unburned methane, nitrogen dioxide, carbon monoxide, and formaldehyde. And electrification of buildings can lead to improved resiliency, as studies have shown that the electrical infrastructure network can be returned to service in days or weeks after a major incident like an earthquake, whereas gas infrastructure will take weeks and months. And then there's the local and regional mandates. So you mentioned the appliance rulemaking. So that was also an impetus for the roadmap. And so we'll start with the local mandates. This chart shows the countywide emissions by sector over time. And then the dashed line is the state's target of 40% below 1990 emissions by 2030. And since if you're looking up at the orange and the green line, 31%, it's the little bars blocking it. There we go. 31% of the Marin County-wide emissions do come from the built environment, so gas and electricity. But since we've been cleaning our electricity grid over time, both with local solar and with MCE, and even PG&E's been doing a lot, that wedge continues to shrink and the portion of emissions from natural gas increases. So actually in 2022, 85% of the emissions from our built environment came from the burning of fossil gas. So it's imperative that we address these appliances if we hope to meet that state goal of 40% below, or much less our zero emission targets of 2045. So therefore, the county and all of the cities and towns in Marin do have electrification and decarbonization measures in our climate action plans, and we need that coordinated approach to achieve them. And then stepping out and looking at the larger regional and statewide levers that will be, that give us a reason to have this plan. There are rules either already developed by BACMed or in development by the state, which will also direct building owners to shift to electrified appliances. From 2027 to 2020 or 2031, BACMed will be phasing out gas, space, and water heating appliances from being sold or installed in homes or commercial spaces. Shown here are the dates for the Air District appliance rules. These rules are focused on the sale and installation of zero NOx appliances. So it's not quite a gas ban as you hear people talk about. It won't make someone who isn't already planning to replace an appliance change it out, and it won't address things like gas stoves and fireplace inserts.
Since you've got the timeline up there, I would just interject that what I was going to talk about later, the California Energy Commission new building code for 2025, which goes into effect January 1st, 2026, will effectively mandate under the building code, so that's new construction and major remodels, both gas heat pump water heaters and gas space heaters. Not a mandate, but it's going to be really hard to do anything other than electric appliances under that. Thank you.
Sure. And then in addition to the Air District's phased approach, the California Air District, so going from the region up to the state, is also developing regulations on zero emission space and water heaters. They were currently looking at 2030 as their timeline, but they are trying to coordinate with the regional air districts like BACMed. So a lot in development there. And then stepping back from the details of exactly which rule or building code will apply in which year, I think the bigger picture is that there are excellent levers coming into play over the next few years that's going to transform the heating, cooling, and water heating market. These levers are going to have a much bigger impact than anything we could achieve on our own, but it doesn't mean that we just sit back and wait for it. What we need to do is figure out how best to aid those levers, how best to leverage the levers and aid that market transformation. How do we remove friction and barriers in the process? How do we grow the transformation so it's just not just focused on time of replacement, but is larger than that? And so that was our goal with developing the roadmap, was how do we bring all of these things together? So here we go, the plan. Over the course of approximately 16 months, Brian Reyes and the Electrification Roadmap Steering Committee actively engaged with each other and the community to bring this roadmap together. There were over 20 steering committee meetings with local and utility partners. We hosted 3 in-person workshops with stakeholders. A lot of the folks in this room were there. We had community-based groups representing disadvantaged communities, renters, housing developers, seniors, and environmental groups. The workshops also included folks from the building community, government staff, appointed climate commissioners, realtors, and regional and public agencies and utilities. Each participant volunteered extensive hours to the project to learn, listen, share resources, and work together to develop key components of the roadmap. And I really want to stress how thoughtful and open all of the stakeholders were. They all bought into the process, and were really trying to shape the roadmap so that it was workable for everyone. So collaboration was really key to the success of this process. So here here are the 10 actions that were identified in the electrification roadmap. Each action includes potential implementers, key objectives, equity considerations, measures of success, proposed timeline, and then subtasks within the action. While the road image implies that we'd be doing the actions one after the other, I want to make clear that many of the actions are already underway, and the actions can actually be done concurrently, and many support each other. So that's partly why Brian chose not to do actions 1 through 10 and instead use the letters. He didn't want it to be like, first we do 1, then we do 2. I also want to clarify that there's no silver bullet action. There's no one entity, be it the county or one city or one group, that's going to implement all the actions on their own. It's going to take all of us working together, the county, the cities, the private sector, community groups, and individuals and youth such as you guys. It's going to take the whole community, and it's going to take a combination of measures. I'll spend a little bit of time on each of the measures, some more than others because we have limited time, but I'm sure you guys will be asking questions at the end. So if I miss anything that's of specific interest, you guys can hold my feet to the fire. For each action, I'll go through what was identified in the roadmap and then what has been done to date. So the first action, we heard from many stakeholders, and what was rated highest overall in our survey was that we needed a more centralized electrification resource hub to help everyone navigate what is a constantly changing and developing landscape. However, different people access information in different ways. Some people do best on their own with a strong website and a lot of weedy information that they can dive into. Some just want to pick up a phone and talk to a human being. Others prefer a helpful app or an online tool where they can input information and get a plan spit out. So how do we provide for all of these different styles with a limited budget and not wanting to reinvent the wheel? The first step in this process is focused on increasing and improving our existing online resources for the community by collecting and curating available information on technologies, rebate, financing options, and services available. And then the county has recently done an update to our Electrified Marin website, and residents can start there at marincounty.gov/electrify, and they begin their journey. If they know exactly what they need, like information on contractors or permitting or just a list of rebates, they can jump right there. But if they need a little bit more assistance, they can jump over to our Electrify 101 site, and then they can learn about what are the different appliances. They can watch our Marin Green home tour that we've done in the past to see what other people's journey has been. They can watch a webinar where we presented information. So it's all curated there for folks just wanting to figure out what is this electrification thing. Or they can jump into the Get Started on Home Electrification. And so we use San Rafael's excellent 8-step guide to electrification and set it up online where you have the step-by-step process with links to each relevant information. So again, as people navigate these projects in different ways, take step 1, for example, go to step 1, there's different ways to do an assessment. You can do it on your own using tools like Home Intel or Rewiring America's online assessment tool, where you input information about your house and it tells you about potential steps. Or there's concierge services like Quick Carbon. You can call up on the phone and they'll walk you through it. So all that information is there. And then the county really wants to avoid reinventing the wheel, which is why we're curating all of that information there. So we're linking to other resources like Rewiring America's Electrification Plan tool that walks you through creating that plan, identifies the rebates and resources. And then more locally, we're linking to MCE. They just launched this rebate finder tool. Again, our goal will be to bring these resources together in one place, and ultimately each homeowner will go on their personal journey using the tools that work best for them. And so while there's always that desire for a one-stop shop for information, there's really not one size fits all. So we're trying to kind of bring the two together. But an information hub is only helpful when people actually find it and use it. So task A2 of the roadmap is that we really need to beef up our marketing and promotion of these resources. And that will take coordination and I think a cohesive message. So we'll be working on that with our community partners, with the cities and towns, so we can really get this information out there and get people started on the journey. So moving on, permit discounting and streamlining. To encourage people to voluntarily electrify their homes and in anticipation of those appliance rules coming in the future, jurisdictions will need to take steps to make it easier to get a permit for these changeouts. Building and safety departments could use same-day permitting and remote video or photo inspections for electric appliance switchouts, much like they've done for solar technologies. This action will be at the responsibility of each jurisdiction, but we can all work together to aid in the development of these streamlined tools and provide consistency to the building community. And this action is actually already underway. Last week, the Bay Area Regional Energy Network, we call it BayREN, hosted an in-person forum that brought together building permit staff and contractors to share real-world experiences with the permitting of heat pump water heaters, with the goal of identifying ways to streamline the process. And BayREN is committing to bringing all of that information together and developing tools to help jurisdictions make that or implement that streamlining. And under our local grant with BayREN, the county is also working with them, with our local jurisdictions, to bring it to Marin. Another area of opportunity is the permit fees themselves. Jurisdictions are encouraged to examine their own permit fees for these electrification upgrades and identify ways to reduce costs, either through permit fee reductions, permit holidays, or permit rebate programs. But since building departments are generally fully cost covered via the permit fees they collect, this could be challenging, and they'll need to identify ways to fill that budget gap while not impacting service. It can be challenging. One of the goals of permit fee reductions is to increase the number of permits, but then you need the staff to be able to do all the processing and inspections. So hopefully by doing the streamlining of the permit process, we can reduce the need for, it would have minimal staffing impact. So it'll be a balancing act between those two. So moving on to local energy codes. Every 3 years, and you mentioned it, the state updates the building codes, and each jurisdiction is required to adopt those updated codes at a minimum. But they can also choose to develop standards that exceed the state baseline requirements for energy codes. We call those REACH codes. The county has maintained some form of an energy REACH code since 2002. And as part of the 2022 cycle, we worked with most of the cities and towns to adopt a model all-electric REACH code. Alas, that code hit a bit of a hiccup this year when the Ninth Circuit Court decision stated that, such a code preempted federal standards and therefore was unenforceable. So it was a speed bump. It was not a stop sign. We're not done. We have a new code cycle will go into effect starting in January 2026. And our existing work program already includes a focus on developing an updated REACH code over the next year that can't be challenged. We'll be working with BayREN, with the state codes team, and many partner jurisdictions in developing something that is workable and defensible. And I want to say how appreciative I am to all of the engaged local champions who have shared insight, advice, and patience as we navigate this process, speed bumps and all. As with the previous code cycle, our goal will be to work with all of the Marin jurisdictions so that we can all adopt it and have it countywide, both for bigger impact and then consistency for implementers. Action D, increasing access to funding and financing. So a fully comprehensive electrification process can be costly, talking about a lot of equipment. So it'll be critical to identify and promote all the various programs that can help offset that cost. Things like federal tax credits and regional, state, and local incentives. Unfortunately, the incentive program is constantly changing these days. So again, that's why that resource hub and MCE's tool is critical in trying to provide some tracking and some clarity. But even with all the available incentives, there still may be a funding gap in the project. Access to low interest financing programs will be important both for residential and for commercial customers. So the first step is evaluating and promoting the existing programs. Again, we don't want to spend limited budget and limited staff time duplicating something that's already available, and nor do we want to develop something that might be better suited at a regional or a statewide scale. Back in 2014 and 15, there was a lot of potential for property assessed clean energy, PACE, and the county at that time did evaluate starting our own program. We visited with Sonoma County and learned a lot about what they were doing. And what we learned was that the administrative costs far exceeded the benefits that running our own program could be. And we were lucky at that time that there were regional and statewide PACE programs available that we could opt into. So that's the route we went with that. And we authorized it locally. It is still available to residents. And then the state has also launched a low interest financing program for energy related projects called Go Green Financing. And so really the most important first step is getting that information out there. And then while we're doing that, the roadmap also calls for us to examine and evaluate whether these programs are enough. Are they filling all of the need, or are there gaps? And there might be other potential solutions like on bill or on tariff financing through PG&E or MC, for which Marin jurisdictions and our community partners could advocate. So that's, we'll have to look into that. And then speaking of PG&E, as we continue to electrify our buildings and our transportation networks, the demands on PG&E and our local distribution network will continue to grow. PG&E is already struggling to meet interconnection demands in a timely manner with the existing conditions, and those demands are only going to grow. So Marin jurisdictions will need to continue to hold PG&E accountable to state and timeline regulation or standards. So county and local jurisdictions can also proactively alert PG&E to potential interconnection projects, such as housing developments and EV infrastructure, to ensure that PG&E can plan distribution upgrades and be ready to meet those interconnection timelines. And we've already started meeting with PG&E to figure out the best path forward for exchanging that information. And then finally, the roadmap calls for Marin jurisdictions to work with PG&E to access and analyze energy data to identify opportunities and constraints related to electrification. Maybe we can find where there's some low-hanging fruit for potential neighborhood scale decarbonization, where the existing infrastructure, electrical infrastructure is already robust, and there's aging gas infrastructure where we could do some pruning, and we'll get into that in one of the later actions. So what happens if we give all of this education, we fill all these gaps with financing and incentives, and we streamline the permits, and there's not enough workforce to support it all? So that's where we go with the grow and support the workforce. We will need contractors that are comfortable with the new technologies and ready to answer questions to guide folks through the installations. When we started the Electrify Marin program in January 2019 is when we launched. We had that year about 3 regular contractors that were submitting applications. We now have 60 different contractors that are submitting applications. So the industry is growing, but it will need to grow more. Some of that work is already underway with Lime Foundation's Building and Electrification Introduction Program that several Marin jurisdictions sponsored last winter. The work MCE is doing with contractor internships via their Green Workforce Pathways Program. And the Electrification Career Fair that the county hosted just on Saturday. We had over 100 attendees to the event, and MCE reported that they signed up 30 people for their Green Pathways program. Yeah, it was a great turnout. But that's just the beginning. We'll need to do more of those fairs. We need to all work together to continue to bring training programs and certification programs to Marin residents looking to get into the field. And we'll need to connect those job seekers to contractors looking to hire and expand. And then finally, we need to grow the industry as a whole. We don't want just 1 or 2 big contractors doing all the work. We want to increase those number of contractors in building electrification so that residents can find competition to get the best contractor and the best price for their project. As we embark on and continue this transition to an all-electric world fueled by renewable energy, we need to make sure that we don't leave anyone behind. We have found over the years that underserved households in Marin are generally the last to take advantage of available subsidies, including rebates, incentives, or financing dollars. So as we roll out these programs, we need to make sure we are structuring them in such a way that our historically underserved neighbors have access and support as they navigate the process. It will be important to partner with existing community-based organizations to expand communications to these hard-to-reach communities. In early 2025, the Marin program will be launching a moderate income program for homeowners, which will complement MCE's low-income program. Our goal with the development of that program is to ensure that the participant is fully supported all the way through. Hopefully, through efforts such as this, we can ensure that everyone has access to these technologies and resources, and then we can also hopefully learn important implementation lessons that can be expanded and scaled to all Marin residents. And then ultimately, the roadmap calls for accountability. We'll need to do annual evaluations to know how our roadmap actions have or have not led to equitable outcomes. And then while this roadmap is mostly focused on building electrification, a true countywide electrification roadmap can't just focus on buildings. If you remember back to that chart at the beginning, that block of color at the bottom, that's transportation. So if we're going to achieve our goals, we also have to tackle transportation. So full electrification and emissions reductions will need to include the electrification of our vehicles. But there's already a strategy for that. In 2023, the Marin Climate and Energy Partnership released the countywide EV acceleration strategy, and many jurisdictions have already adopted it, and most jurisdictions have already started implementing the strategies from that plan. They've started installing EV infrastructure. They've started switching their own fleets. They're doing outreach and education to the community. And so we'll need to continue these efforts and expand them as we continue to electrify our communities. And then one of the last actions in the plan is that the plan also calls for exploration and consideration of an energy assessment and code compliance check at the time of real estate transaction, or in simpler terms, it calls on jurisdictions, again, it would be jurisdiction specific, to adopt a code that would require either the buyer or the seller in a real estate transaction to obtain an energy assessment or audit of the property at the time of the sale. The hope is that there's value and power in knowing how efficient a property operates as you go into that transaction. The first step would be to study and test that theory. In Brian's favorite phrase was, is the juice worth the squeeze? A requirement such as this will have costs associated with administering and enforcing it, costs for the jurisdiction to adopt and enforce it, realtors facilitating the sale, the participants of the sale. So will these costs be outweighed by the potential benefits of people actually using the information to make their properties more efficient? Will it lead to energy and cost savings and ultimately emissions reductions? If the study shows that in fact benefits of such a code outweigh the cost, then we'll need to find a jurisdiction willing to pilot, develop, and implement the rule. And again, each jurisdiction has to adopt the code on their own, but we will be working all together to evaluate and consider that. And then before we even get into the feasibility study, we already have kind of started this action by engaging with realtors in the roadmap process and via our voluntary green marketing efforts. Marin already offers the Home Energy Score program for assessing homes and offers excellent training programs to realtors on how to use the program to market homes and work with their clients. Rather than wait on the development of a mandatory time of listing ordinance, we can and should be promoting and requesting these existing programs and resources. And then the last of the 10 actions in the roadmap is as I mentioned before, the consideration and pursuit of neighborhood scale solutions. It's sometimes called gas decommissioning or gas pruning. Basically, in contrast to a home by home or a single appliance approach, neighborhood scale electrification looks to achieve economies of scale by working with many homes all at once, and then by using cost savings that would otherwise have gone into maintenance of that gas infrastructure, they can use the savings of that to help implement the electrification projects. It will require partnership with PG&E to identify the ideal locations for projects such as this, but it does have significant potential impact. There will be some challenges with this, some regulatory, some technological, some financial, So the first step is to monitor some of the pilots that are already going on. And then identify what best practices we can bring to Marin. And then longer term, this is a longer term measure, but again, it has really good potential. So we're definitely investigating. So we have the roadmap, we have the 10 actions. What's next? How do we start? Well, as I've kind of outlined already, we have started, we are doing a lot, but we have a lot to go. So we've got the central resource hub, the permit streamlining work underway. We'll be starting the reach code development soon. We've updated, we've got programs and resources for our underserved community. We're going to roll out the Bay Run program in 2025. So we've got a lot underway, and then hopefully we'll use the roadmap to keep us focused and expand those efforts, seek funding to implement additional measures. And ultimately, as I've said at different points throughout there, each jurisdiction will be responsible for their consideration of the roadmap and their level of participation. The county nor the roadmap can make any jurisdiction do anything they don't want to do. It will be up to the residents and the sustainability commissioners and committees of each jurisdiction to encourage and support adoption of the roadmap in whole or in part in your jurisdiction. We have set up and included templates in the roadmap that a city or town or the county can take and bring it to their council for adoption. And climate staff from all of the jurisdictions will continue to coordinate via the Climate and Energy Partnership. And MCEP staff will also be available to give presentations similar to this, probably a little bit shorter, to councils as it's requested. And I will say that we are working at a county level to bring the plan to our board in October. It looks like it's tentatively on the schedule. Everyone's getting their pen ready. October 15th. Yeah. And so, yeah, thank you guys for your time. And now I'm ready to be in the hot seat. Woo.
Well, thank you, Dana. That was really thorough and comprehensive.
Fast.
Yeah, and very fast. And we really appreciate that. So I've got a question, but before I get started, just sort of some ground rules on how we're going to run the question and answer right now is we're going to start with questions in the room. And if you're asking a question, you need to speak into the owl, which is this thing right in front of me here. That doesn't mean you need to come all the way and lean over on it, but you talk to the owl as opposed to the screen or to Dana, which is sort of in the same direction as the owl. After we take some questions in the room, Bill Carney's going to curate the chat and pick up some questions from there. And I think Bill probably had some of his own he's dying to ask. But so with that, let me just ask my one question. Dana, keying off the last comments you'd made, previously when the county rolled out its new building electrification plans and the code changes that went out in 2023, the jurisdictions were pretty slow. The other jurisdictions were pretty slow in adopting those code changes after the county did. And I'm anticipating the same because, to my knowledge, none of the local jurisdictions yet have even mentioned this yet. Doesn't seem to be on their radar screen. So really, so the question is, what can we all do to jumpstart our local jurisdictions in paying attention to these things and getting it adopted?
Mm-hmm. Actually, we have already had a couple of cities start to ask us to attend either a council meeting or a climate commission meeting. So there is some interest already building. I think it's a little bit different this time than it was in 2022 before we did the 23 code, in that cities have brought on sustainability staff since then. So it is a little bit different landscape. They have dedicated staff now. Most of the cities do. So I think you're going to see a little bit more engagement than you did back then. That being said, it's still good to reach out to that sustainability staff, reach out to the climate commission, just say, hey, do you guys have plans for this? I'd love to know when it's getting presented, so that I can attend. And that gets it, gets them understanding that there is that demand in the community. So, but I think it'll be a little bit different this time. They've been very actively engaged in development of the plan as well. Many of them were on our steering committee, which was different than when we did the building codes.
But also important to speak to your elected officials or city council members or town council members, because they do respond to staff, but they more respond to their constituents. So that's, you know, you need to show up and make a 3-minute comment.
Public open comment time at the beginning of every city council meeting on a topic that's not on the agenda.
Right.
And they're not gonna address it right then. But you show them that there's interest. So with that, do we have questions in the room about the roadmap? Yes, could you state your name and?
Yeah, my name is Simon, and I was wondering a bit about the energy assessment code, and specifically what the score for homes, like what is the criteria that they're assessed on?
Sure. So a home energy score, it was initially developed by the Department of Energy. So it's a national program that we brought to the Bay Area. And it scores homes on a 1 to 10 basis, comparing them to similar homes of their size and type, and letting someone know whether theirs is more or less efficient. And so it looks at I don't think it gets into the walls of the insulation, and it doesn't do like a blower door test to do air leakage, but it looks at kind of the size, the type of building, the equipment that's inside, how the basement or the attic is insulated, and puts it all into a calculation to determine how it's performing. What we have also done in the Bay Area that's a little different than the national one is we have added electrification measures. So it inventories what appliances are there and makes recommendations in the report of what could be switched out and electrified.
Can I just ask
Yeah.
about that? Yeah, I just wanted to mention, there's a number of us, about 4 or 5 of us, who are working on home energy score assessments, trying to find out what other cities have done. Berkeley is way, way, way ahead of us on this front. But the home energy score scores on 40 different components, 40 plus. So it really does a pretty good assessment of homes. And Liz, we just had Emily Alvarez, right, who is in charge of this program for the Bay Area, do a presentation to the Building Electrification Squad. And there's a set of slides, which I sent to Liz last night. So she might want to send them around to you all, just so you can get an understanding of what this is. Even though it's low on the list and, it's way down there, it's going to take a lot of education, as you're saying, with both the community and homeowners and realtors on what it is, how to use it, how it helps buyers and sellers, etc. So there's a lot of active work going on that particular subject, the home energy scores.
Jody, just since you raised those slides, if you can either put them in the link to the slides in chat or send them to me, and anybody who's interested in them can ask me and I'll
Great, sure.
send them out.
Yeah, it's also on the BE Squad Google folder, but I'll see if I can get it in here right now.
May I?
First of all, do we have any other students that want to ask questions? Yes.
You said earlier that the emissions from electric energy sources has fallen a lot in the past years. How does that affect the effectiveness of new solar systems? And what's the impact of adding a battery pack to a solar system?
Sure. Yes, with the net metering changes, it has changed the financials of installing solar as standalone. So using the grid as your battery, because the value in 2000, say in the early 2000s, we had a huge amount of demand during the day. And so generating electricity during the day was very valuable. And so the utilities paid for it. Now with so much solar on the grid, the time when solar is producing, it's just not as valuable. And so they've had to reduce those payouts, and that's where the net energy metering changed. But there's still value in getting yourself up. It's still valuable to the grid in that it's distributed generation. It improves resiliency. While the financials, I believe, last I saw, it changed on average for a residential system. The payback was 6 to 9 years with net metering 2.0. Net metering 3.0, I think it shifted to more like 12 years. Systems generally last 20, 30 years. So you're still going to pay off that system. You're still going to have stability with your electricity rates, which is valuable. So there's still value in doing standalone solar. Where it can become even more valuable is if you add that battery backup, because now you're a resilient home. If the grid goes down for whatever reason, your home stays up. You can also do what they call eventually, when the rates shift, or when they make some changes to the rates, you'll be able to do what they call energy arbitrage, where you charge your battery during the day and discharge it at night when energy is most needed. So you can charge it with low-cost solar and sell it at high-cost time of use. It's not quite there yet, but what you can still do with that battery is charge it with your low-cost solar, and instead of buying high-cost grid energy at night, you're just using your battery. So there is big value to pairing those systems together. It does increase the cost, so that needs to be factored in.
Plus bidirectional charging and
Well, then there will be the possibility with bidirectional charging of vehicles that you just have a rolling battery on your car, but that it's exciting, but complicated. So yeah.
Other student questions? Yeah, go ahead. Your name, please?
I'm Addie. What do you think is the most important part as youth in our cities to help Marin electrify? Because I think it can be kind of intimidating to like go to these big council meetings if you're the only like younger person there. So what do you think are steps we can take as younger people of our cities?
Yeah. I will say that while it's intimidating, you guys have the wow factor.
you do.
Council members see young people talk and their ears perk up. They want to know what's going on. So they listen to you guys. So if you can get over the intimidation, it is very powerful if you go and speak. It's also powerful if you reach out and maybe ask to meet with them one-on-one or as a group, as a class project. The reusable foodware ordinance that the county and all of the city, almost all the cities joined, it started by 2 students in West Marin meeting with their supervisor and saying, we want this. And then he came to staff and said, we're going to do this. So, you know, if there is power in your voice, and you should make it heard, however you guys feel comfortable. And then I would just say also, talk to your parents, talk to other students, because letting them know, like, hey, have we thought about electrifying our own home? There's a lot of power in just that kind of grassroots implementation work as well.
And then this, one thing I would add on that is also starting to plan ahead, get your families planning ahead on this, because the one thing that happens right now is most people replace their hot water heater when it breaks. When it breaks, you have no hot water. It takes a little time, particularly if you might need to run an electric line to where your hot water heater is to replace it. A lot of people don't want to wait. So talk to your family and your friends about, hey, what kind of a water heater do we have right now? How old is it? How would we go about replacing it? That can be huge, just getting ready, getting electric ready. So other student questions?
I could do
Yeah.
I want to just emphasize how important it is to get out to those microphones, right? We have an owl here, but all of these city council meetings, they've got microphones, they're available to you guys, and to emphasize what Dana just said, it is powerful. I know it's why San Rafael has deep green, buys deep green, 100% renewable. That was because a couple of folks your age got up to that microphone a few years ago and said, you need to do this. And it literally, you could see the decision of the council change at that point. So it's very powerful. Get out to those microphones. There are organizations that will lend you support in that. Sustainable Marin has a list of ready action. What do they call it? It's a quick action response team. And you could sign up with that. And it would let you know when items are coming up.
I want to quickly follow up too. I worked for the Board of Supervisors for a long time, worked with Dana. There was a group of students, and I think they were from MCL, Marin School of Environmental Leadership, but I'm not sure. They came into a Board of Supervisors meeting. They were all wearing like yellow t-shirts that said "We Vote" or something like that. And they gave the Board of Supervisors in the county a grade of B.
Oh, I remember that.
Right?
Yeah.
And it was really powerful. I mean, it just kind of couldn't say no to students, right? Honest to God. So practice, give your 3-minute speech to your cat or your parents, or just the sofa and a pillow. Just practice with each other, and you're beloved. Like, don't feel intimidated, because the electeds are just like everybody else. They get dressed in the morning, they have their coffee, they go to work, they do whatever they do. They're not special. They're just people who are elected and part of our community. So just go for it. Just like be brave. And if you stumble and you fail, doesn't matter.
They'll
That's
still
just,
love you.
they'll still love you. And it's a learning experience. I have someone who works for me is also a stand-up comedian, and she says there are no bad shows. There are shows that go great and shows that go terribly that I learned from. So,
Can
all
I
right.
also just add, I mean, you can also send emails to all your council members. That's a really easy way just
Yeah.
expressing your opinion about anything. And also Zoom, you can zoom into the town council meetings if you want to take a little step before you actually show up. Being there in person is fabulous, but emails you can do anytime. And the Zoom just at the beginning of most of the meetings. Those are really powerful, especially if you start, I'm a student, I'm 16, 17, whatever.
Yeah.
They listen to that as well.
I'd like to ask a question and provide some information. Are you familiar with the MCL water heater? It is a sun-powered patented water heater, which is based in Hamilton Air Force Base here in Marin County. And they're being installed now, and they are affordable, they're equitable, and for environmentally friendly solutions. They are sustainable with only PV,
Okay,
no inverters,
thank you, Jack.
no pumps.
There's a number of different technologies out
There is a
there. So
website, so
Yeah.
Excel.
we got it. Thanks for sending that out. Any other student questions?
I think spread, I guess electricity onto homes and transportation, but also, I guess, also, is there also a roadmap, for education or for public schools? Because I do believe that maybe we can also like change, like, for example, school buses have so much air pollution they contribute and spread so much gases. And maybe we can find an alternative, for example, like EV transportation, but what about the cost? Is the cost a barrier? As well, like heat pumps, like also like schools, especially public schools, they do experience a lot of like, I guess, indoor and outdoor lack of like air quality. So do you guys also have a roadmap for education, especially the Bay Area, or I guess public schools?
Sure. We do have programs and resources for schools, so I work with schools fairly closely. And then, and we try and do energy efficiency. Many of them have installed solar and some have installed car chargers. I actually rode on an electric school bus last week at the Clean Fleet Expo. It was awesome. There are state rules that will start to transition those fleets, so they are subject to state rules that are going to help with that transition. There's not a specific plan, as far as I know, for the electrification of schools, but many of them are doing work. There are some little challenges with switching out some of the equipment to electric in that, to get in the weeds a little bit, schools are subject to the State Division of Architects that have to make sure the school is safe for all of the students. And so the permitting can be pretty arduous to switch an appliance and change the footprint of an appliance, which many of these do kind of change the footprint a little bit. So it's been a little bit harder to say, go to heat pump water heaters with them, but we are working on it.
It's changing.
I would just say there's also an effort, not so much in Marin at this point, as far as electric school buses, because amongst other things, they're huge battery sources. And so they can provide a really resilient, even if you don't have big batteries at your school, if you've got a bunch of school buses, you can run the school lights off those buses if the power goes out. And because the buses only run really in the morning and the afternoon, they got all that middle of the day to charge up. So there's a lot of effort. There's federal subsidies under the IRA to reduce the cost of electric school buses. They're like twice as expensive as diesel school bus right now, but
Cost is coming down.
cost is coming down.
Two things, look up, it's a Sacramento organization called Undaunted K-12. Tons of information, and Oakland Unified School District has electrified their fleet.
Yeah.
So those are places in the Bay Area and California that you can get more information on schools. There's tons of stuff on schools. So good question.
Bill, can you pull a couple of questions off the chat for us?
Yeah, I've got one that kind of gets into a different area, which is from Wendy. She says, are there any specific efforts in the plan to reach out to multifamily property owners for electrification? And in doing so, to avoid gentrification as well. And I might add to that also just commercial properties versus single family homes.
The Bayren program, or Bayren does have a multifamily program, which includes electrification measures. So it's an voluntary incentive program that works with multifamily property owners to switch out common area, water heating, and various appliances. And then also has some measures for individual units as well. So that's a really good program. We have found it's been hard to get Marin property owners to really participate in that program. So if anyone knows a multifamily property owner, please send them our way. We want to get more folks involved in that. And then, so that's on the voluntary side. MCE has some programs for multifamily as well. They partner with Bayren on that. And then we've definitely been talking with property developers as part of the plan, and then any that come in through the county for permits about new construction of multifamily, and making sure, while we can't enforce our all electric ordinance right now, we are very much encouraging them to go that route as much as we can. And people, a lot of developers have been fairly receptive to that. Commercial, I will admit, we do not have a beefed up electrification of commercial equipment yet. And that is an area that will need some work.
Okay, and will that be part of the plan, part of the roadmap?
It was not a huge focus because we did that buildings analysis, and most of our buildings and most of our emissions come from the residential environment. So the focus was starting with that, but I think statewide there is a push on the commercial side as well. So we'll bring whatever resources and tools we can.
Anything else on chat?
Yeah, I do have another one. This is from Peter. And he says, PG&E's Energy Center offers a decarbonizing the built environment series for contractors. So this is on the workforce element. And he's wondering if the roadmap is, or the county is coordinating with PG&E on that.
We do coordinate with PG&E on a variety of things. We do try to promote their training programs where we can. We could probably do it a little bit more for the trainings for contractors. Bayren offers a lot of contractor trainings as well, so we've kind of focused on that. But yeah, we could expand more to, and we're actually going to be building out the contractor section of our Electrify Marin webpage to include these training resources. So we'll be doing that as well.
So we've got one more student question, and then I think they've got to get off to their class schedule. So we'll take a short break. Maybe two.
No, arm wrestle.
I'm Cece, and you talked about how the regulatory boundaries don't address gas stoves. So how do you see induction stoves kind of fitting into this?
Great question.
Great question. Very emotional appliance. I have never, I have gotten in many an argument about gas stoves are the best. I am an induction stove owner, love it. I actually cook more because I have it. So it's going to take a lot of education. We are, as we do, we've got some local codes like we had for the all electric new construction. We hope to bring that back so that we kind of get there before the gas stove even goes in. On the retrofit side, we have a major remodel ordinance that is more of we call it the flex path, where people can choose what measures they do. And there are points for electrification, points for switching out that gas stove. So that's trying to encourage them to go that route. We do have our Electrify Marin rebate that helps people offset the cost of going electric. And then just a lot of conversations. We've had chefs do cooking demos on induction things. PG&E offers you can sign up online. They will mail you an induction hob that you just plug in the wall with 2 pots, so you can practice cooking on induction and dispel some of the myths. And then you get it for 2 weeks and you mail it back. So we're really trying to promote all of those things, but that is an emotional battle. So
Major health issues,
So-
however.
yes.
Okay, one more
But
question.
someone mentioned and I think this is a great analogy, everyone's like, oh, it's not that bad, it's not that bad as far as indoor air quality.
It's really
But
bad.
would you roll your propane gas barbecue into the house and cook there? Cause essentially that's what you're doing. So, it's not great. And if you are not ready to switch out or your parents aren't ready to switch out, don't ever cook on your gas stove without that hood running. You really want that hood going to get some of those.
A
fumes
hood
out of
that
there.
is actually putting it outside, which is not good for.
Not good, but better for the indoor.
Yeah, the stuff that just recirculates does nothing.
Yeah.
So Ken, I have one thing.
Just a second, we got one last question from a student, then they're gonna leave, but Dana can stay here for another 15 minutes.
My question has to do with the students. So. I
Okay,
just
well,
wanted
let's
to
get this
ask you.
one and then we'll,
Then they can decide.
yeah. Please, your
Okay,
name?
so my name is Sasha, and I'm kind of like wondering, because like the road map specifically is so dependent on jurisdictions and local jurisdictions adopting it, what other than like health, resilience, comfort, things like that, what are other like incentives for them to really adopt this, given that they already have like such busy agendas?
I mean, it reinforces and supports their climate action plan, which they have already adopted. It is such a large wedge of their climate action plan that if they can't adopt this and work on these measures, they're not really implementing their plan. So I would drive that home to them. And then I think really, talking about health, comfort, resiliency, that's what they're trying to provide to their constituents. So really harp on those, that it's not just greenhouse gas emissions, because that's amorphous and easy to dispel, but the health and comfort of your neighbors, that's actually, pretty important and might get their attention a little bit more, so.
Bill, you can go ahead, you ask the thing, and then we're gonna take a break.
Okay, fine. I thought your question was more a question of, there's some opposition that you're gonna find. And is there a place, a Q and a fact sheet that people can look and say, this is where the problem is coming from? Because you have to understand what we've seen so far. I mean, why isn't it easy to do? Well, there are a lot of reasons, but one is that, for example, there's now this notion that electrifying is risky because fire hazards, I mean, all kinds of things that are coming up that I've heard. And so you need to be able to understand it and respond to it. So I just wondered if you had any thoughts about where people could find answers to those questions, or at least put them in the right direction.
Well, we do have an induction page in our electrification resource hub, which has some of that information, but you bring up a good point is perhaps we need to add a messaging hub or
I
something.
think that'd be good, yeah.
Yeah.
Like that.
Okay, with that, I think we're gonna take a short break, while everybody goes, but. Okay. Dana's got another 10. Yeah. Well, I don't think, or we don't even, short break. Okay. Stand a couple of.
Go for it, you guys.
Okay,
Do we have any last questions here on this topic before we switch?
I do have
I
Bill
have-
from the screen.
yeah, I have one.
There's one that's got an endorsement here from the screen, so let me do that one. If I can, this is from, Sue Saunders. And it just is a question of cost and particularly the barrier often of a large, having to redo, an electrical panel, right? From 100 up to 200 amp. So she's saying let's see, it can be costly upgrade of power capacity. That there's information out there now that shows that you can do a lot of this on 100 amp panels.
Yes.
And she's wondering if there are any studies of Marin homes that have gone electric with 100 amp panels, and how successful has that been?
Mhm.
And would that be something available on the hub?
Great.
I don't think we have any case studies of 100 amp. I'd have to go back and look at the green home tour, because there might have been some of the participants in that. So I'll have to look into it. It's a really good question. We're definitely focused on panel optimization before upsizing. In fact, we're looking, Mark and I are in conversation now to figure out, is there a way for us to provide some kind of incentive to residents who do panel optimization in some way, whether it's a breaker splitter or something. So we're looking into that. There's a couple jurisdictions, SMUD and Palo Alto have done something similar. So we definitely want to look into that. And I think if we can bring more resources to the website on smart electrification, we will be doing that when we can, so.
There's someone who is actually an expert in this, Tom Cabot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we work with
yeah.
him.
Yeah.
He did
Tom-
our webinar last year and,
Yeah,
great
Great.
resource, but
great resource.
so I know there's information out there. It's whether we have a Marin example or
Right,
Yeah.
right.
not. So,
Is part of your plan, yes or no, trying to get tax credits for the homeowners and or property owners that
Well-
will take on and bring about electrifying and eliminating gas?
well, we would not be going after the tax credits for them. They are, we provide that information that they can take the tax credit, but we would not do that for them. But it is part of the incentive information.
Bob?
Yeah, so, other consumer choice aggregators, provide, a couple of others provide, funding to local jurisdictions for things like, your number D action, implement advanced green building and electrification code, or C, implement permit streamlining and incentive. So I'm wondering, what difference would it make to this, implementing the plan if there was, say, 500,000 or $1 million that was available for those actions? How much of a difference would that make?
I mean, it might be, I don't know, we'd have to evaluate, could those funds be used for, say, a permit holiday or permit fee rebate program? I will say though that, we did a survey with contractors and the fees, aside for a couple outlying jurisdictions, the fees weren't the holdup. It was all the friction in getting the permit that made them not like the process. The fee they can just pass on and, and it's a few $100s. So that wasn't the biggest holdup, but maybe the funds could be used for that. I don't know if necessarily funds for energy code update and permit streamlining, maybe it could help a jurisdiction, but for instance, on the last energy code, Brian and I and the team did almost all of the work for the jurisdictions. We had all the templates, we had all the information, and cities still chose not to adopt it. So I don't know if funds really would have fixed that, because they didn't need to hire a consultant to create the stuff, because we created it. So I'm unclear on the code side, whether 500 or a million would fix that, the issues that are there. It's political will and allocating permanent stuff into it, not one-time funding.
All right, Jim Bros has got his hand up, and Jim, I don't know whether you have a question on this topic for Dana, or you're ready to sort of segue into the discussion about where Bachman is. You might do both, because I know Dana's been watching the Bachman proceeding as well, so I'm sure she'd be interested in hearing what you have to say, and may have some comments of her own.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. Actually, I do just have a quick point of information question for Dana. Dana, is the county actively participating in the Bachman's implementation working group sessions?
We were not invited to participate in the working group, but we, like, Barry Hooper with San Francisco is, so we work with him quite a bit and get info on it from him and then give some feedback that way. So, and then I sit in, much like you've been doing, I've been sitting in on the working group meetings to hear out what's going on.
I'll just say it's a little bit surprising that you wouldn't be invited, but
It's okay.
It's well covered, actually. Yeah, I mean, I don't feel like I'm missing out by not being on that working group. And I, honestly, with everything that's going on, I don't know if I would have the bandwidth to do all of the extra interim stuff. So it's nice to be able to give information to Barry and have him do that.
So just for a quick update, Dana obviously has already covered the broad strokes of the Bachman rule. It effectively bans gas-fired water and space heaters in 2027 and 2029, respectively. I just want to emphasize that for space and water heaters, what the Bachman rule effectively does the same thing that the Berkeley ordinance and a number of marine ordinances would have done before the Berkeley ordinance was overturned by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals early this year. Now, I don't need to go, of course, into what Dana's already covered, and as explained by Dana, there's a number of implementation challenges with regard to meeting these compliance dates. And as I was just noting, the BACMID has set up a implementation working group to try to help the board, the Bay Area Air Quality Management Board, to make sure that it can keep to these compliance dates, if at all possible, 2027 and 2029. The IWG has over 40 invited members. I'm surprised that the county's not an invited member, but that includes contractor representatives, building owner representatives, the Canal Alliance, MCE, other CCAs like PC and SVCE, and so on. And it's got a couple of committees, equity committee and a technology or technical subcommittee. And they've been working for the past year and are going to continue working through 2029. So just quickly, 3 of the major challenges that have been identified to date, according to BACMID staff, are some of the things that we've already been covering, all of which frankly have to do with costs. One is the high upfront costs for new heater installation, especially, and Ken has already kind of touched on this, especially in cases where a simple swap out of a water or a space heater is not feasible, likely due to space constraints or electrical panel upgrade needs or service needs for a particular structure or residential structure or building. Another major challenge identified to date is the impact on renters and how to avoid the landlord from passing through the costs of these of switching to electrical appliances, or worse, how to avoid construction-related evictions for renters that are potentially occasioned or caused by the upgrade to an electrical compliance. And then thirdly, another major challenge to date that has been identified, and again, already touched on in our discussion, is the need for a steady flow of financial incentives to help pay for the acquisition and installation of these new electrical heaters, space and water heaters, and the inherent uncertainty of how to keep these incentive programs funded and flowing from all the various sources, federal, state, and local sources that we have for funding various incentive programs. Of course, the implementation working group is working on a number of other issues. Already touched on equipment availability, workforce competency and readiness, streamlining the permitting process, grid readiness, availability of local support programs from the local CCAs. All of that kind of thing is in play with the IWG. And where the BACMIT stands right now is that staff is in the process of preparing a interim implementation report to the board, to the BACMIT board, for its December 4th board meeting. And that meeting, of course, is public, and the report itself will be publicly made available the standard 72 hours prior to the December 4th meeting. And so we're going to want to take a look at that written report by staff and see what further they've said about the challenges of meeting these compliance dates of 27 and 29, and what can be done to hopefully get to those compliance dates. And we'll have to reassess, our situation at that time. But I think the next major step will seeing that board staff report when it comes out in early December.
Jim, in your discussions with staff, were there any indications that there's going to be an effort to push out those dates?
No.
Let me put it this way: staff is not in a position to talk about that publicly. They can't get out in front of the board on that issue, and so I think, as far as I know, anyway, I mean, that issue will be addressed, if at all, in their December 4th report to the board.
Good. Leslie?
I'm on the coalition, the Bay Area Clean Air Coalition, which is working with staff. And we have several people who are part of the IWG. So all of the things that you just brought up are really being discussed. BACMET hired a couple of different consultants, and I think a total of 11 reports have been done. Have been done. And I think they're going to be released. They're discussed at the IWG. I have not been in the last meeting, but those reports are covering all of the issues that our BACA group has been able to, kind of tease out as implementation impediments. So, and there's a toolkit as well that Spur and the rest of us put together. So I'll share that. I'll share the toolkit with this group, because that's public.
Good. Okay, thank you. Any other questions on the BACMET status? Okay.
So Ken, you're going to give a.
Yeah, just a really similarly quick update on the energy code as I alluded to during Dana's presentation. So they passed the new building codes. The California Energy Commission last week approved the new energy code changes for the 2025 code cycle. And the way those things work, first of all, is during 2025, there's materials developed and education outreach to the jurisdictions so that the codes actually kick in effective January 1st, 2026. So although it's the 2025 code, doesn't start applying until 2026. Yeah, it is. Totally confused.
Yeah.
But it does a couple of good things that's, as I alluded to, that sort of furthers where we're going with BACMET, et cetera. So it mandates that you will need to install, whereas right now, depending on which climate zone you live in, you either need to put in a heat pump water heater or a heat pump space heater. It's going to mandate that both of those have to go in new construction starting in 2026 for new construction that is governed by the 2025 code starting in 2026. It's pretty clear there's some language in it that makes it clear we're not banning gas appliances. No. There's going to be some performance-based standards that make it clear it's not a mandate to get around the EPCA preemption and the Ninth Circuit decision. But according to all the information that's coming out from the Building Decarb Coalition and others, it effectively is going to make installation of anything other than under current technology, heat pump water heaters or heat pump electric space heaters, not possible. It's also going to do, it's got some incentives so that it will on commercial buildings, when you replace a gas rooftop unit, space heating unit on your rooftop, you need to, starting in 2026, you'll have to do that with an electric heat pump of some kind. And so that's approximately 1/4 of all commercial HVAC units in California would be under the 2025 code. That's
right.
under the code. So that would be, so I don't know how that's gonna work. They don't have the details aren't there. So what happens after 2026, I would assume, you may have some insight into this. So if I've got an existing commercial building in San Rafael or wherever, and my heat pump space heater goes out in 2027 or late 2026, I'm gonna have to replace that with a heat pump according to the way I read this.
I mean, I'll be honest, I haven't read the new code that's come out, but basically the application is any building permit pulled after January 1, 2026. So if the code says that that's the rule for commercial buildings and they pull a permit after January 1, 2026, then yes, that is what they will have to do. But I haven't gotten into the language yet.
Okay.
So I usually have Brian for that.
Yeah, so we'll have an interpretation of this. Right now, all we've got is sort of press releases and until somebody dives down into the code language itself and really understands it, which will count on you, your staff to do data.
Who is going to issue these press releases?
Well, the California Energy Commission has issued a press release. The Building Decarb Coalition has issued a press release. Something called Facilities Dive, which is related to Utility Dive, has also issued a press release in which they reported on these changes. So there are press releases are out there because this happened last week.
The same thing.
They're all reporting the same thing. So now I haven't read any. I'm sure there are other views of kind of what this is going to do and whether or not I'm sure that the California Restaurant Association is probably looking at this closely at the moment in order to see how this is going to govern things. I also don't know how this might affect things like Northgate, where, here we've got these proposals to, they want to keep gas for the commercial spaces down the road, for the potential restaurant spaces down the road. I don't know which code.
It depends when they got their entitlements and when they pulled their permits, so.
Yeah.
They typically, what we see at the county is in November and December, right before new codes go into effect, we get a lot of people pulling permits, maybe even if they're not ready.
Shocking.
Yeah.
Shocking.
So it's possible Northgate will do something similar,
Okay.
but that's where that education between the city and Northgate will be really important. So. All right, I have to run.
Okay.
I will be at the, they call it the senior fair, but I hear we're supposed to say aged adults. Older adults, there we go. I have to go, yeah, well, older adults.
I wouldn't really that.
Go help the boys at that event, so maybe I'll see you.
All right, Dana, thank you again. That was very good. Really appreciate it. Okay, Bob, I turn it back over to you for, I guess.
Yeah, so this is the part of the meeting where community groups can provide announcements.
I have an announcement before that. So at our next meeting in October, on October 16th, Damon Conley has agreed to speak. So he's going to be coming giving us, Bill, what's he gonna?
Well, he's gonna talk about Prop 4, which is the climate bond issue. And when I'm looking at you, yeah, the climate bond issue, which is, I don't know, $10 billion worth of, and they're climate related adaptation projects. And I talked to him recently about it, and he's really enthusiastic, and he will explain the background, the legislative background, the various aspects of it. So we're really fortunate because If you got your ballot yesterday, you'll see it there, Prop 4.
Right.
So it's there to be voted on and also for us to consider. And then he's also going to talk about the past legislative session in terms of what he thinks the contributions were, that the things that they accomplished and what they didn't, and then to give a brief suggestion of what's coming ahead.
Great,
Great,
thanks.
Yeah.
Good. So, announcements from folks. Jody,
Yes, I have to do, of course. I guess first I just would mention that 350 Marin, we're having protests this Friday. Bills aren't very common anymore in the county, but there will be some of us out on the streets in front of Citibank on 666 3rd.
In Centerville?
Yes, yes.
What are you
4 to
doing?
5.
What
We're
are you
doing this-
protesting?
We're doing this, it's in support of the global climate strike, Fridays for a Future, Greta Thunberg, Jane Fonda, the whole crew. There are strikes and events all day on Friday for the Future. So this Friday, we're having one in solidarity with them in front of Citibank, which we've done many times. The Citibank is used to it. So if you haven't been out for a while and would like to come stand with us from 4 to 5, please join us. There's information about it if you need it on our 350marin.org website. So that's happening. And then also I'll just mention that on behalf of the Fairfax Climate Action Committee, which I chair, we also have another film coming up October 18th called Purple Mountains. And 7 community partners are part of it, including the Sustainables, etc. And so we're just starting to distribute that flyer. We encourage people or welcome people to come to Fairfax to the Women's Club for that film. The producer will be there. It's about a skier who talks about the issue of snow and how you get people from different political points of view to agree to work on something specific that they want to support or keep healthy, like snow. So it's a great film and good for the voting issues that we're all trying to think about and how to vote. So there's that. And then also the last thing I just want to mention is that Monday, finally, Fairfax and San Anselmo will have their brand new climate action coordinator starting. So we have not had any staff for several months, and we're really excited. A young woman named Bridget Whitfler, who's relocating from Seattle, will be staff to both San Anselmo and Fairfax. So we're hoping to get going on a lot of these initiatives that we typically try to stay ahead of, but now we'll have staff members starting.
Didn't you have staff? What happened to him?
Sean?
Yeah.
Sean Euro went to work with Bayren and some other
Okay.
local groups. So he left in February. So it's been a while since we've had somebody, but they're starting on Monday. So we're super
Good
excited.
for you.
That's all.
so, thanks. So Wendy?
Yeah, hi. I just want to let people know, if they don't already know, that the Green Home Tour is going to have another presentation October 24th. You can go to greenhometours.org and get information, and please help spread the word that that's happening. They do an incredible job of showcasing what people have done to their homes, how they've upgraded, and there's a lot of really helpful information that goes along with it.
Sue?
Thanks. I just wanted to announce that the San Anselmo Climate Action Commission is going to be presenting on building electrification for homeowners or renters on October 28th at 7 p.m. at the San Anselmo Library. And it's going to be going over incentives, and we're going to have David Mueller presenting on heat pumps, and also 3 of us will be talking about our stories of home electrification. So should be pretty informative, and if you can help us advertise it, that would be great.
Okay. And then I'm going to call on myself to announce that this evening at 7, Marine Conservation League is hosting a webinar about the decommissioning of PG&E's hydroelectric facility. It's called the Potter Valley Project. It's about also removing 2 associated dams on the Eel River, which have blocked fish passage for over 100 years. And the removal creates mostly opportunities to recover fisheries, support tribal justice, and manage impact to the current Russian River Basin water users, including Marin's water agency. And climate change really has been increasing the challenges, but also the opportunities coming from this project. So it's a worthwhile webinar tonight, and I just put the link to it in chat. It looks like it's a very long link. So that's it.
Annika. Annika?
I have a shorter link to share, and I will share it just now, just announcing our fall EV discount campaign. We have 4 fabulous cars with great lease deals on them, and many of them also qualify for the federal tax credit as well as other credits, so saving lots of money on an EV. We'll be launching another pre-owned discount campaign in October, as well as an e-bike discount campaign. Come join a webinar tomorrow at noon if you would like. I'll put it in the link.
And Bill?
Yeah, so a week from, well, next week on Monday, the 23rd of September, we're part of a group that's hosting a candidates forum, largely focused on races within San Rafael, but also including the assembly race and the water district race, at least the portion of that is in San Rafael. So would invite everybody to come to that. It's 5 to 7 on Zoom on September 23rd, and the Zoom link is on the SSR website embedded in our newsletter, which is posted there. It's also available on the main partner for this, which is the Federation of the San Rafael Federation of Neighborhoods on their website directly. The other partner with this is the San Pedro Road Coalition. So anyway, hope to see folks there. It's a good chance to hear what our electeds are thinking about and our would-be electeds are thinking about. And of course, it does include the Board of Supervisors race in which is largely in Ross Valley, but it does lap over into San Rafael as well. And that's a really interesting one.
Okay,
I have one.
Val?
Yeah, the Ecologically Sound Practices Partnership has a forum on the 8th of October, which is going to be an update on the Marin Biomass Project. And that's from 2 to 4 p.m. And then on October 22nd, the MWPA and us and others are having another field trip. And we'll get more out on that, the purpose of it. And I just want to mention that tonight, in conflict with what you're doing, Bob, is a kind of neat program put on by the city of Ross. And it is about wildfire and insurance. And so it looks like, and Mark Brown is going to be talking about the insurance side of it, and there'll be others. And so it takes place in the California Science. Anyway, if anybody's interested, they can check out. Let's see, what do they check out? Let's see. Science and Plant. What is the name of the park out there in Ross? Everybody knows, everybody goes there. California Science and whatever it is, and it's between 5 and 7 p.m. And I just really realized that I'll probably be going to that. Anyway, that's my report.
Okay, and a reminder that the next Climate Action Working Group meeting is October 16. David Connolly will join us, and that's it, folks. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.